Hello everyone, this is Bob and Threadbare, and welcome back to The Longest Journey. I think it's about time April got dressed. The only way to do that is to try and leave.
I'd better head over to the studio to do some work. Only 2 weeks until the big show opens, and my contribution is in serious need of attention. Might be a good idea to get dressed first, though.
Yeah.
Hey, babe. Babe, you're looking real sexy today.
Zach, listen, I've got to run, and...
What's going on, April? How you been?
Well, you're a douche nozzle. Let's just blow him off. Not try to encourage or discourage him.
I don't really have time to hang around.
Then how about hanging out with me tonight? A few raptures, some hot dancing. Did I tell you I got a VIP pass to the pavilion? Those things are hard to come by, babe.
Let me think about it.
Let me think about it.
So think about it, babe. But don't keep thinking too long or I'll be gone. There are other birds in the sea, you know? Gotta go.
Yeah, you should probably find one of them. Oh god, he's the next door neighbor.
What an asshole. Organic plastic. It grows, and it converts carbon dioxide into oxygen, just like real plants, but it doesn't need nourishment of any kind. Convenient, but disturbing.
How does it do that exactly? Oxygen is a high-energy molecule. You would need some sort of fuel in order to do that.
It's a leaf of organic plastic. It grows. It converts carbon dioxide into oxygen, but it doesn't need water or sun. No nourishment of any kind, actually. Convenient, but disturbing. Big surprise, I'm still here. It's kind of unsettling to be so...
Yeah, I've heard that one before. Alright, got two neighbors here.
That's Zach's room. I've never been in there, and I pray I never will. Nuh-uh. I'm not knocking on that door unless it's absolutely necessary, and frankly, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Alright, what do you think about the other neighbor?
Charlie's apartment. His place is twice as big as mine, with a private bathroom and a huge bed. I guess he likes his creature comforts. Nobody home. It's a fact, as in FACT, Free Access Terminal. Computer.
Voice interface is not installed. Please use the touchscreen interface to communicate with this free access terminal.
Oh, okay.
Why not consider a very reasonable upgrade? In addition to a voice interface, true holo display technology and Instacredit compatibility.
No, I'll just use my hands, thanks.
You are missing out on a great opportunity. If you upgrade now...
Hold on. You understood that. You have a voice interface installed already. Why would I pay to have another one installed?
Current voice interface is for sales purposes only. If you take advantage of this very affordable upgrade today...
No, really. This terminal doesn't belong to me.
Noted. Please refrain from voice communication in the future, or you will be reported to the FACT FUB and charged for processing time.
FUB?
Fair Use Bureau. They are authorized to carry deadly arms.
Well, whatever. Sorry.
Cyberpunk future.
No, I don't think I'd appreciate the FUB barging in on me right now.
Yeah. Gotta pay the premium to get the ad-free version. So what do we have down here? Front door's obvious, but...
We have a nice view of the bridges from this window. It's a chair.
Fascinating.
Emma picked this table up at a flea market for $10 last month. That's $9 more than it's worth. It's a matchbook.
It seems huge. Bit off proportions there.
It's a matchbook from the Fringe Cafe.
Well, matches are always useful.
Shelves. The omnipresent screen. I don't pretend to know how it works, but all the data apparently passes through tiny little black holes in the fabric of our dimension. You know, that really freaks me out when I think about it.
The funny thing is, modern homes have those in them.
Annual summer blowout at the Fringe Cafe, Friday, August 4th, 8 p.m. Free food, live performances by Royne Dale, Harlequin Masquerade, The Go-Getters. Tickets available at the bar, $10 only. Spread the word. I'm sorry, but big sweaty jocks do not turn me on. I'll take a nerd any day.
Well, that's a little self-indulgent.
I can't tell what that note's saying as long as it's up there. Fiona's handwriting is not particularly legible. Found. A gold ring under the common room sofa. If it's yours, let me know. But no false claims, please. Fiona. I did lose a gold ring a few weeks ago. I hope this is the one. I'll have to ask Fiona about it.
Well, good thing we looked at the corkboard.
Pizza and movie night, Monday, July 31st. BYOS. BYO what? Soap? Look, it's Monkey Boy! San Francisco. I'd love to go there someday. Someday soon, hopefully. Common room, duty roster, July 27th. April and Emma. Oh, joy, manual labor, my favorite. Be considerate. Keep the volume down after 11 p.m. Fiona.
Anything else? No?
They really knew how to design tacky furniture back in the late 22nd century. That's Fiona, my landlady. She's all right.
Let's go talk to her.
Morning, Fiona.
Good morning, darling. You're up early.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep.
Are you feeling all right? You look a little pale.
We're doing world building, so this is gonna take a while.
I just have a lot of work to do.
For the exhibition. How's that going, darling?
Good. Fine. It's going. Actually, it's not going so well. I haven't felt inspired in a long time. Weeks. I'm scared that I'll never... What would happen if I just ran out of creativity, Fiona? What if I can't ever finish a painting again? Oh God, I've chosen the wrong line of work.
Oh, darling, no. I just think you work too hard. I worry about you all the time, you know.
Don't.
Well, darling, I do. You should work less and play more. When was the last time you had a boyfriend?
God, don't remind me. That's a depressing thought.
Well, there you are. Live. Enjoy your youth. It goes by too quickly as it is.
Yeah, you'd know, wouldn't you?
Ooh, that's uncalled for. That's downright mean, April. I'm in a mind to kick your ass for that one, and I've won tougher fights, believe me.
Where's everybody this morning?
Mickey's tied up in the basement. Mind you, she's not literally tied up, of course, although that is a tempting thought.
Are you getting into your sexual fantasies here, Fiona? Because it's a little too early in the morning for that, don't you think?
Sorry, I just can't help myself. Anyway, the plumbing is... You probably noticed when you took a shower, yeah? There's no hot water. So Mickey's working on that. Getting knee-deep in putrid canal water is her job, thank God.
What about Charlie? He up yet?
No, he's still sleeping, and Emma just went to bed. I saw her come in when I was making breakfast. Do you know who she's seeing now?
I don't know. Some guy?
Those lads I see her with, darling. She's too good for those arseholes. I wish she'd find herself a man who'd treat her right for once.
She hasn't had much luck with love, no?
She's a magnet for creeps, and she's so pretty. They prey on her, you know, bastards.
I've tried to talk to her about it, but Emma's impulsive. She doesn't listen.
She's just as headstrong as you and me, darling, but I'm sure she'll be all right. She's smart and resourceful, and not afraid to speak up for herself.
Shouldn't you be outside enjoying the good weather?
You joking? Bollocks to that. I'll stay inside until September, thank you very much. It's too bloody hot.
Can I ask you a few questions?
Why, certainly, darling. About what?
Tell me about Emma.
Emma? Why, she's your best friend, darling. I don't know what to tell you that you don't already know. You girls are so close.
That's true. The day we met, we clicked instantly. It was strange, but cool.
Like me and Mickey, then? Except for the sex, of course.
That's a pretty big except for, Fiona.
Oh, I guess so. She's the crazy one, Emma is. Not crazy as in mad as a hatter, but crazy in a good way. Fun to be around.
Emma's always been a little weird.
Exactly, darling. She's a flirt, too, and the boys seem to drop like flies at her feet. No wonder. She's a real looker, I don't have to tell you. I'm sure she could have been a model if she'd wanted, but she's an artist, and a good one, too. I really think she'll be a successful artist. Her sculptures are getting a lot of attention.
Anything else you can tell me about Emma?
She ought to be a little more careful sometimes. She's a flirt, and although she doesn't mean any harm, some lads don't take too well to being teased and rejected. You should tell her that, though, being her best friend and all.
I have told her. She won't listen.
No. She does worry me a little, but she's a big girl and she can take care of herself. I'm certainly happy to have her living here. Next to you and Charlie, she's my favourite tenant.
What did you think of me when we first met?
That's a peculiar question, isn't it? I thought you were quite lovely. I still do, darling.
Do you remember the day I arrived?
Of course, darling. It wasn't that long ago, and I'm not senile quite yet. It was in May, wasn't it? Charlie referred you to me, and you were quite at a loss. First day in the city, wasn't it? I remember. You looked like a lost puppy.
Puppy? Me?
When I saw you lugging that suitcase across the bridge, my heart went out to you. I'm glad you came here. You could have been lost anywhere else.
How long have you known Charlie?
Oh, he's one of our oldest tenants. It's close to 3 years, I believe, since he moved in. Charlie is always in a good mood, and he's such a gentleman.
I agree. He's an actual, genuine gentleman.
And you don't see a lot of gentlemen these days, trust me. You have a very good friend in him, darling. Perhaps even more than a friend.
What do you mean, more than a friend?
Not for me to say, darling. If you don't realize it yet, you will.
What's up with Zach Lee?
Zach? I think we both feel the same way about him, darling. He's not actually a bastard. If he was, I'd have had him out of here in an instant. But he is an arse, and a stuck-up, pompous, arrogant wanker.
My thoughts exactly. Aside from that wanker bit.
Still, he pays his rent on time and he doesn't make a lot of noise. He keeps to himself. And most importantly, he's shit scared of me, so I can't just kick him out.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, Fiona.
Me? Why? There's not much to say, darling. I love my job, I love Venice, and I love being with Mickey. I'm a happy girl. Sure, sometimes I wish I could go back to England to see my family, but that's water under the bridge, so to speak. I'm very happy with myself and my life here in Newport.
How long have you and Mickey been together?
Mickey and I have been together since I was 19. She was in her late 30s then. The older, wiser, worldly woman. I found her sweet and charming and intriguing. When I finally realized she was neither of those things, it was too late. I was in love. She stole me away from my dreary British inner-city life, and she brought me here. She was no knight in shining armor, that's for sure, but she knew how to treat me like a woman.
You guys make a great couple.
You think so, darling? Yes, I guess we do. And the sex is amazing.
You never get tired of talking about your sex life, do you?
Never. And if I ever do, please shoot me.
Can you tell me something about the border house?
That's one of my favorite topics, darling. What precisely do you want to know?
What made you decide to run a boarding house?
That's a long story. One of the reasons Mickey and I got together was that we shared a passion for the classic English country inns. You know, quaint, weathered buildings, funny old ladies, and oddly suggestive names like the Lazy Cock.
So why come here to the big city, to America?
We wanted to create a place with a similar atmosphere and hospitality here in Newport. Like a safe house for people like you and I to call home, if only for a short while. So we discussed different options for a few months, and then we decided we wanted to start a boarding house for young, penniless students and artists.
You decided you wanted to do that here in Venice?
We knew that Venice was the place for us long before we came here, but the hard part was finding a building cheap enough.
And this building was available?
Not at first. Like most of the buildings in Venice, this one used to be a factory, but when we first looked at it, a local company was planning to turn it into a bar and nightclub. It was so perfect for our purposes, though, that we appealed to the Venice Borough Council, and after outlining our plans, they gave us the go-ahead at a reduced price, provided we kept our promises regarding our tenants.
What inspired the name Border House?
That came quite naturally when we saw the place. It's on the border between two worlds, isn't it? Between Venice and the city itself. And at the same time, I also believe we're on the border between two more abstract worlds. Between art and spirit on the one hand, and science and technology on the other.
That's very poetic, Fiona.
Yes, I've practiced. I may be an inner-city girl, but I can philosophize and bullshit with the best of them.
Do you and Mickey own the place together?
We own it together, yes, and we've shared the responsibilities between us. Mickey takes care of the maintenance of the building, and I busy myself with the administrative tasks. I also take care of the day-to-day management of our tenants, like deciding whether or not to let someone rent a room. And, of course, the unpleasant business of booting someone out.
I thought you enjoyed that part.
Yes, all right. In some cases I do, but not always. It can get quite messy.
Thanks for the information.
I'm glad I could help you out, darling.
What can you tell me about Venice?
I don't really know much about the history of Venice. You should really ask someone with an interest in local affairs. What I do know is that this whole neighborhood used to be an industrial area, and that about 100 years ago they converted most of the buildings into residences for students and the homeless. And it's a nice place to live, certainly. Friendly people, liberal attitudes, great clothing stores, quite perfect, aside from that dreadful stench from the canals in the summertime.
What's the story behind my apartment?
Your apartment? It's more a room than anything else. Not much more than a large closet, really.
It's not that small.
It's one of our smallest rooms, but it's cheap and it's on a nice floor. I hope you're happy there.
I like it. It's convenient, and it's got an interesting view.
That's nice to hear, darling. As for the story behind it, no unexplained deaths or hidden pirate treasures, I'm afraid. Just a long string of students on a tight budget.
Do you like Newport?
The city? I stay in Venice most of the time. It's easy to forget we're just a tiny little pocket in the middle of a sprawling urban wasteland. But do I like it? I think Newport is one of the great cities of our age. Love it or hate it, you can't argue with that.
And which one is it? Love or hate?
I haven't decided yet, darling. Ask me again in another 15 years. Perhaps I'll have an answer then.
I don't have any more questions right now.
Don't hesitate asking if there's something else you want to know.
I'd better get going.
Off to school?
Yeah, there are no more classes this semester, but I have to finish my painting by next Thursday.
For what it's worth, darling, good luck. And don't work too hard, all right?
So you can expect a few more episodes like this one, mostly just talking to one or two people.
I love this mural. Even though the motif is a little trite. I mean, fairy tale forests and magical dragons? Still, it's pretty. I wonder what happened to the artist. Probably making a bundle from cheesy fantasy calendars and book covers. It's a pretty mural.
Oh yeah, almost forgot. Hey, yeah, here's something.
I saw this note on the corkboard. I think the ring might belong to me.
I'm sorry I have to ask, but could you describe the ring?
Sure thing. It says Sweet 16. My dad gave it to me. I think it was the only birthday of mine he remembered, or at least acknowledged.
Yes, that's the one. I found it under the sofa when I was vacuuming. Here you are, darling.
Thanks. It's not worth much, but it's got a certain sentimental value for me.
It's a very pretty ring.
Yeah, it is. My dad never gave me anything pretty before or since. He must have won a poker game or something that day. You know what's strange? I don't hate him. He's a bastard and he treated me like crap almost every single day of my life. But I don't hate him. I feel sorry for him.
Why?
Because he doesn't know how to love. He can't love anybody or anything. And because he'll be miserable every second of every minute of every day until the day he dies. God, I'm glad that life is behind me. I hope I never have to see him again. No, that doesn't sound right. I've made a choice not to see him again. Ever.
Yeah, you hate your dad. You're not angry with him.
Dad gave me this gold ring on my 16th birthday.
But what you described is definitely hate. What the hell is this?
What a mystifying contraption, and completely absurd. What are all these valves and wheels and thingamajigs for? What grand purpose does it all serve? I'd guess that's a pressure gauge. It's at 100. That's percent, I guess. 100% pressure? The water tank's full. It's a rusty old wheel. I'd imagine it turns the water on and off. It won't budge. The pressure's probably too high. Mystifying.
I get the feeling we should do something about that.
That's probably Mickey's handiwork. She's the tool gal around these here parts. I wonder why she put the clamp there, though. Oh. It seems the clamp served a purpose after all. What a surprise. That cable's been ripped in two. The cables are too far apart to tie them back together. Looks like a big piece of cable was torn off.
Well, you know something? Gold is a really good conductor.
I hope it doesn't melt or anything. It's alive!
Yeah, screw that whole sentimental value thing. It's an inventory item. We needed it. What the hell am I doing here? Oh, okay. Well, I can line them all up, but it's not exactly the issue here. The big thing is that I need them all to be horizontal at the same time. I'm not entirely sure how I screwed that up. The red button doesn't do anything. Red light, I should say, because it's not a button. Yeah, I'm kind of winging it here. But yeah, it gives me a little time to say what I was trying to say earlier, which is that, yeah, this is a game with a whole lot of talking, and, you know, not all of it is very realistic. It's, I mean, that conversation we just had is not the sort of conversation two people just sort of casually have in the morning. But, you know, that's not the point. Oh. I did it.
It won't budge. The pressure's probably too high.
Is there anything else I can do here yet?
The ring seems to be working perfectly as a conduit between the two cable ends.
Oh, maybe I'll just screw with this later. Until then, we've got one more conversation left to have in this video.
Oye, señorita.
Yes?
How are you this morning, señorita bonita?
Hot.
I see. The summers in Newport are never pleasant. And it will get worse before it gets better. They say there's another heat wave headed our way.
Yeah, so I heard. So, you gonna be alright? You don't look dressed for the weather.
Si Dios quiere. Sunshine and pretty señoritas give an old man like me the blues. I like my days cold and rainy. In fact, I think I prefer the world to be in black and white.
Like an old movie.
Like all good movies. But tell me, señorita Ryan, how would you describe your perfect day?
I think April would prefer sunny days. Maybe not this hot, but...
Hot and sunny like this one.
Well then, you should be happy to be alive today, yes? It is a perfect day. But you are not happy, are you? You are troubled by nightmares.
What?
You are afraid of them. You even fear your dreams may be real.
Who told you about my nightmares?
No one. I can tell from looking into your eyes. I see the ghosts that haunt you.
I don't know who you've been talking to, but from now on, stay the hell away from me in my personal life.
No puedo, señorita Ryan. You have a destiny.
Destiny? I don't care what you think. Just leave me alone.
If you don't face them, I'm afraid your nightmares will continue. Soon they will appear to you even when you're awake.
You need some serious help, you know that?
We all do, April. That's the reason we are here, you and me.
That's it. I don't have to listen to this.
Perdóname. I've upset you. We didn't think you'd react this way. I hope we can talk again soon.
I don't think so, no.
Please, think about it. And señorita, cuidado. Be careful.
Who's this we? Hey, the journal updated. April's thoughts on what just happened.
That's Cortez. He sits in the same spot almost every day. I hate to admit it, but he scares me a little. I do not want to talk to that weirdo again.
Alright. Well, see you around next time, Red. Today, we start in on my request list, and right at the top is a science fiction show named Stargate SG-1. Now, let me just use SG-1 as a quick example here. You notice how I didn't turn on the old history corner for this one? SG-1 describes some stuff ancient humans were supposedly doing, but the history of the world as a whole is unchanged. You gotta have a bigger impact than that to be alternate history. Anyway, the story about the story. Once upon a time, in 1994 to be precise, a movie came out named Stargate. It was an early Roland Emmerich movie, and it had a rather interesting premise. There's this old theory. Ancient peoples couldn't have built the pyramids. They clearly wouldn't have the technology or understanding it takes to make them, like the ability to build giant piles of rocks or basic geometry. Clearly they were the work of aliens. Well, Stargate proposes that this argument is true, and that an alien named Ra is inhabiting a human boy's body and sent a group of Egyptian slaves to a distant desert planet connected by a Stargate, a wormhole device that creates a stable portal between two distant locations. The US Air Force has the Egyptian Stargate in a secret government facility, and they bring in Egyptologist Daniel Jackson to interpret a set of 7 coordinates. Once the gate opens, he and Colonel Jack O'Neill lead a team of special forces through the portal, accompanied by a nuclear warhead. They befriend the human locals, Ra shows up and his soldiers attack the team, and in the end, Ra and his soldiers blow up when Jackson and O'Neill detonate the nuke on Ra's ship. As an Emmerich movie, Stargate is loaded to the gills with cliches and special effects. Critics either hated it or didn't care for it. That didn't stop the movie from grossing $196.6 million on a $55 million budget. It even got a Saturn Award and a Hugo nomination, both of which are awards that focus on sci-fi and fantasy works. In fact, it was so successful that it spawned a spin-off TV series, which is the focus of today's review. In 1996, 2 years after Stargate came out, MGM brought in producers Brad Wright and Jonathan Glassner to create Stargate SG-1, the first of what would eventually be several TV series based on the Stargate universe. Hell, one of them is named Stargate Universe. The first thing they did was recast the main characters. Jack O'Neill was played by Kurt Russell in the original film, but on the show he was played by TV actor Richard Dean Anderson, most famous for playing MacGyver up until 1992. They also added an extra L to his last name to help keep the two versions of the character separate. James Spader played Daniel Jackson in the movie, but for the show they got Michael Shanks. They then built up the central cast by adding Amanda Tapping as Captain Samantha Carter, someone who's both scientist and military. And they added Christopher Judge as Teal'c, a Goa'uld turncoat. More on that later. Finally, they added Don S. Davis to play General George Hammond, the head of Stargate Command. Stargate SG-1 was a big hit that ran for 10 seasons, and it led to several more spin-offs and made-for-TV movies. It also went through several cast changes and villain arcs, but here's the thing. Before I started preparing for this review, I had not seen one episode of Stargate or any of the movies, including the original. Watching everything is kind of a tall order for a weekly series like this one, and so for this review I'll be focusing exclusively on Season 1 of SG-1. So with that in mind, let us proceed to the story. First off, let me just say that I am covering 16 hours worth of footage instead of the 2 of a movie, so this summary is not going to be as detail-oriented as usual. Still, I'll do my best to go over all of the important details as I recap the season. It's been several years since the events of the movie, and the Stargate project is in mothballs, since, according to O'Neill's report, the one destination the Stargate links to has exploded. But then the gate activates, and a bunch of guys in giant snake helmets show up and abduct a woman who's part of the guard detail. The Air Force soldiers fire on them as the Snake Men head back through the gate, and we see that, while their metal armor can resist bullets, they aren't completely immune. They still get away with their captive, though. This causes the new general in charge, George Hammond, to reactivate the Stargate project and pull Jack O'Neill out of retirement. Hammond gives Jack command over a few other Stargate veterans, including Kowalski and Ferretti, and Sam Carter, who will be their new science expert. Jack admits at this point that he lied in his report. Daniel Jackson and the people of Abydos, the other planet, are alive and well. So Jack and his team go through the Stargate and find out that, everything's alright actually. Daniel is living happily with his wife, Ra hasn't returned, it's all good. However, after the original movie ended, Daniel found a monument with additional Stargate coordinates. Turns out the gates are part of a network, not a two-point link. And the reason none of the other recorded coordinates work is because the monument is 50,000 years old. Galactic drift has moved the stars, and Abydos only works because it's the closest destination to Earth. As they discuss this, however, the Snakehead people show up on Abydos and kidnap both Daniel's wife and the boy Jack bonded with back during the movie because he reminds him of his dead son. Daniel identifies them as minions of Apophis, which is the Greek name for Apep, the Egyptian snake god of chaos and the brother of Ra. Naturally, Daniel wants to go with the team to rescue his wife, and Jack agrees to let him come. The team heads back to Earth and discovers the Iris, a titanium wall that slots over the Stargate opening and prevents any unauthorized Stargate users from passing through. As Daniel proves his value to General Hammond, one of the injured soldiers wakes up and writes out the coordinates he saw the Apophis forces use to go back home. Meanwhile, we find out why Apophis is going around kidnapping people. His wife and son need new hosts for their Goa'uld parasites, and wouldn't you know it, Daniel's wife and the boy are just who he needs. Jack and his team head through the Apophis Stargate and find themselves in a coniferous forest. Half the team establish some base defenses, while the second half, led by Jack, make contact with the locals. Incidentally, everyone on all the planets they'll visit is human because when the Goa'uld were on Earth, they captured a bunch of tribes from across the planet and seeded them throughout the Stargate network to use as slaves or future hosts. Most are also Iron Age technology at best, so the Goa'uld can oppress them with ease. So, between the weapons and the Stargate, most locals tend to think the Earthlings are gods or divine representatives. They also speak perfect English, but that's a compromise to the format. In this case, the locals are Greek-flavored, and they gladly bring the Stargate team to the town where Apophis is choosing his new hosts. But then Apophis himself shows up and captures the main characters. However, while in the dungeon, the leader of Apophis's forces notices Jack's battery-powered watch and realizes how advanced his society must be. So when Apophis makes his picks and says to kill the rest, Jack takes a chance and asks the man to fight with them. The man says he's heard this 1,000 times before, but for once, he actually believes Jack has a chance of winning. The man, Teal'c, kills his men with his staff weapon. Jack then uses it to blow a hole in the wall, and everyone flees for the Stargate. Teal'c goes with them, and on the way over, he explains that he's a Jaffa, a host for a juvenile Goa'uld, who gets strength and long life in exchange for helping the baby parasite grow up. Unlike the adults, baby Goa'uld don't control the hosts, hence how Teal'c can rebel. Most of the team successfully get out alive, but during the evacuation, an infant Goa'uld jumps out of a dead Jaffa and infects Kowalski. All of that happened in the 2-part pilot episode. We haven't quite reached the status quo yet. In episode 2, the Earth Stargate is closed by the Iris as Apophis tries and fails to retaliate. Teal'c says the attempts will eventually end as Apophis arrogantly decides they've done enough damage, but he doesn't know much more than that since the Goa'uld don't share the secrets of their technology with anyone, not even the people they have use it. Later on, it'll also turn out that Teal'c doesn't know how far Apophis will actually go for revenge. Still, while Jack vouches for Teal'c, General Hammond keeps him imprisoned as an enemy combatant. Meanwhile, Sam and Daniel are comparing notes, and Kowalski keeps murdering doctors in a very unsubtle attempt to avoid being discovered. The team eventually catches and restrains Kowalski, but since the Goa'uld inside him is a juvenile, all it can really do is posture arrogantly. Hammond brings in a neurosurgeon to cut the parasite off Kowalski's spine. And while the procedure seems to work, that's only because the Goa'uld created its mature growth inside Kowalski's brain. In the end, Teal'c has to kill Kowalski by cutting off the back of his head with the Stargate opening. Now, while all of this is happening, Jack and Daniel are trying to figure out how much of the host's mind remains after a Goa'uld takes over, and Teal'c is proving his value and loyalty by helping out and explaining what he can about how the parasite works. Having fully proven himself by the end of the episode, Teal'c joins the SG-1 team, and despite Kowalski's end, there's still some hope that a host can survive after a Goa'uld takes over. We then get a series of Planet of the Week episodes, as Stargate Command charts new coordinates off the Abydos list, and teams SG-1 through SG-10 explore what's on the other side. There's the Mongol planet with a whole bunch of sexism, including from the SG-1 team, and at the end of it, Sam Carter beats a Mongol chieftain in a knife fight. Then there's the planet where SG-9's leader goes crazy and takes over a local tribe, and incidentally, he's Sam's former fiancée. The team also meets advanced human civilizations, like the Tolans. More importantly, though, they discover the Asgard, another advanced alien species with power on par with the Goa'uld, but who treat humans as wards rather than as slaves and hosts. Plus, there's the Nox, a group of Fae-like aliens who are so advanced that they don't need to fight, even if someone starts blasting them. The team also discovered that the Earth Stargate opened once before, in 1945, and it sent through a man on a one-way trip to an abandoned castle where 4 alien civilizations used to meet as a sort of United Nations. It thus becomes clear that, while the Goa'uld are the ascendant galactic power, they didn't create the Stargate network, and they probably didn't invent any of their own technology. The Goa'uld are still a major threat, though, and at the end of the first season, Daniel Jackson touches an alien artifact and ends up in an alternate universe. It's mostly the same as his, but a few things are different, like how alternate universe Daniel didn't join the original Stargate project, and Teal'c still works for Apophis. Oh, and the Goa'uld have invaded Earth, using an FTL mothership instead of the Stargate network. Everyone dies, but Daniel manages to get a set of Goa'uld coordinates and escape back to his dimension. The episode after that is basically a clip show, as Senator Robert Kinsey reviews SG-1's actions and decides the Stargate project costs too much money and delivers too few results to be worth the cost. Daniel tries to warn him about the upcoming invasion, but Senator Kinsey has a hard time believing any of his nonsense. In the final episode, the core SG-1 team defy their orders and activate the Stargate one last time to either head off the invasion or return with proof. Their destination turns out to be the Goa'uld mothership, and despite what Teal'c thinks, they make a trip that should last a year in a matter of hours. The ship is commanded by Apophis' son. While the boy from Abydos is still in there somewhere, Jack is forced to kill him to save his team. The season finale then ends with Apophis' ship reaching Earth, but something tells me the Earthlings will win in Season 2. Final thoughts. Something I appreciate about Stargate SG-1's approach is that humans, Earthlings specifically, aren't particularly special in any way. What I mean is that in a lot of science fiction settings with aliens, humans are distinct from every other species because of one key trait, either something good or something bad. Humans know how to love. Humans are the most ingenious. Humans never give up. Humans are the only divided species. Humans are the only ones to destroy their home planet's environment, and on and on. Now, I do understand why so many science fiction stories take this approach. Science fiction is very often used as allegory, as a way to recontextualize human traits in human history, by giving our species a kind of contrast that we've never really had. This lets the audience concentrate on this aspect of human nature and consider just how amazing or terrible we really are. Or both, in the same work. But in SG-1, humans have really only one standout trait. We are the youngest known sapient species in the occupied galaxies. And that's not a trait we can hold on to forever. It also made us a target of older species. The Goa'uld decided to exploit our early civilizations, since we worship them as gods. And it took the intervention of the Asgards to make the Goa'uld leave Earth alone. By the time SG-1 begins, Earth technology has advanced far enough to become a threat to the Goa'uld, but it's nowhere near enough to put us on an even footing. So while we can impress the primitive tribes seeded through the stars, to all the proper aliens, we're just the newbies. Now, I have been doing some research beyond the first season, and apparently humans become more special in later seasons and spin-offs, but again, this is a review of Season 1. Something else I've noticed in my research is that the aliens aren't one united force either. The Goa'uld rule as a set of petty tyrants who often feud with each other, and at least one group of Goa'uld rebels ally with Earth. The Asgards are benevolent as far as aliens go, but their species is dying, and a breakaway group is trying to fix their degeneration by experimenting on humans. The Nox are advanced to the point that they don't need to fight, but as a result, they've almost completely withdrawn from galactic civilization. The Ancients, the beings who created the Stargates, split into two major factions and wiped out most of their civilization before the survivors ascended to another plane of existence. But as for faults, I'd say my biggest issue with SG-1 is the way it appropriates religions and cultures without any real context, and often without fully understanding what it is they're taking. The Egyptian gods weren't all oppressive, and the Norse gods weren't all that nice. Thor leads the Asgard armies, and Odin is nowhere to be found. Or here's another thing. Many of the cultures that the team comes across are based on what seem like ancient civilizations to us, but they didn't fully emerge until after the Goa'uld would have left. And besides that, while ancient traditions have been known to remain static in isolated communities, that's usually not what happens when a group of people move into an unfamiliar environment, like being abducted and thrown through a Stargate. Now, the language thing I can forgive, since doing that accurately is infeasible for a TV show. But when Daniel Jackson acts like the people they meet are an authentic ancient culture guaranteed, I have to roll my eyes. Still, SG-1 is a very interesting show, with a very interesting premise. While the characters aren't exactly always as intelligent and cautious as they ought to be, I liked what I saw, and I recommend you watch it. Thanks for joining me again for today's TV show review, and I hope I'll see you next time when I cover a lesser-known Asimov book.